Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Disrupt Health Tech. I'm your host, Wendy Austin, and today we are going to discuss a breakthrough in ultrasound technology for treatment instead of surgery. With me today is Ganesh Saiprasad, who is the VP of Innovation, Product and Clinical Development, Regulatory and Quality at Focal One. Ganesh, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about your background?
Sure. Hi, Wendy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And you've already mentioned my current role, so let me just quickly give my background. So I actually did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and then I switched to electrical for grad school, and eventually worked as a software engineer. So basically, I've kind of collected a lot of engineering skills, maybe like Pokemon, if you had to use that. But I think this mix has been perfect for medtech when I think about it, which I believe truly brings nearly every engineering discipline. And it's given me a unique and very valuable perspective on the products and technologies we create. So another additional thing is over the years, I've had the privilege to work with a wide range of surgeons, from neurosurgeons to spine surgeons, hepatologists, orthopedic surgeons, and now with urologists. So through it all, I think my focus has been on enabling technologies, which is robotics, navigation, imaging, and AI, essentially all the buzzwords. And I'm guilty, I guess, of using them as well.
Yeah, it is. All right, so most people think of ultrasound as being just for identification of disease or imagery for fetus growth during pregnancy. Would you like to dive into what high-intensity focused ultrasound, HIFU, is?
Sure. And you're absolutely right. I think when most people hear ultrasound, I think they're thinking the classic the fetal images. And for those without kids, I'm not sure what actually pops in their heads. Remind me, I should actually ask sometime. But anyway, let's break it down, right? Like, because sound is something we all know, and we also understand that we have limits in terms of what we can actually hear. So sound has like a huge range of frequencies, and the higher frequencies essentially is called ultrasound, and it's beyond our hearing capabilities. And we know, like, animals like bats and dolphins use ultrasound waves for communication, but we just can't hear them at all. Now, when it comes to focused ultrasound, I guess the easiest way to understand is if you can think back to those childhood experiments of using a magnifying glass, and under the sun, you could focus that sunlight onto a matchstick or a paper, and you could actually light it on fire.
Right.
So in principle, it's the same idea, but instead of sunlight, we used focused sound waves. And these waves kind of concentrate the energy to heat up and destroy targeted tissue. And we target the cancer cells. So in a nutshell, we treat cancer using sound waves.
Wow. That is really cool. So, other than cancer, is there other common uses of high-intensity focused ultrasound that's either approved by the FDA or in clinical trials right now?
Yeah, no, good question. Strangely enough, I think it's been around for a while, and focused ultrasound has been used in various different areas, like cosmetic procedures, like skin tightening. It's treated for like liver conditions, kidney stones, and even varicose veins. But I think what makes our technology unique is that it's a robotic system specifically designed for prostate cancer treatment.
Oh,
So it kind of combines real-time imaging of ultrasound. It also combines the therapy delivery using ultrasound with robotics. So it's almost like an all-in-one integrated platform. And it's very special when you think about it, because there is no radiation, there is no cutting, there's no incision. So it's truly a very short procedure, and patients typically go back home the same day. So it's a big step forward in making prostate cancer treatment, more targeted and patient friendly.
wow. That's really remarkable to think that ultrasound might be able to replace surgical procedures for prostate cancer. Are you able to talk about how HIFU might be equivalent to or surpass the normal surgical treatments that we have today?
Yes. So do you think a little bit of background in robotics helps? Because we're going to talk about robotics, and maybe people have their own perceptions about what robotics means. So do you think a little bit of background would help before I dive in?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So when traditionally in the robotic space, we often differentiate between hard tissue robotics and soft tissue robotics.
Okay.
Another way to classify is probably like the level of autonomy. Like you have fully autonomous robotic systems, we have semi-autonomous, and then you have kind of I wouldn't say manual, but something which is like a surgeon cobot. So within the soft tissue space, if you want to actually segregate them, you have a set of robots that do surgical procedures, and then you have therapeutic applications. So what we do falls under the therapeutic space. And when you think about like the Da Vinci or the intuitive system, that's more on like the surgical space.
Okay.
And I'm giving you this background and to the listeners as well is because there's so much happening in the robotic space, and it's hard to like put a perspective on like what is the kind of robot that's actually part of your system. Right. So we are in the therapeutic delivery space, and I believe we really are in the forefront. So your question about how does this compare to surgical treatments? So currently, the traditional approach is radical prostatectomy, which is essentially removing the entire gland, and the systems like Da Vinci is like used for that.
Yeah.
In contrast, what we offer is a very tailored approach. So we only treat what's necessary. And sometimes it might mean the whole gland, and sometimes it's half of the gland. Sometimes it's like very focal spots. But think about it as like personalized treatment, which is much more targeted. So I mean, I'm very passionate about this, and I think even recently, actually, yeah, we should mention this. We've been talking about the HIFI study, which is the largest prospective trial, more than 3,000 patients. And with that, specifically, it was done with our Focal One system compared against the standard, which is the radical prostatectomy.
Right.
And I'm very happy to share that the results were very compelling. So we are non-inferior to cancer control, and we are statistically significant in terms of other functional outcomes. So the evidence is strong. We have additional studies going on. So I think we are very optimistic. And if you ask me, it's not only going to match surgical outcomes, but I mean, it has the potential to surpass surgical outcomes as well.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. Now, let me ask a question around whether or not you're able to do this procedure with the high-intensity focused ultrasound, kill off the cancer cells. Does that mean that good cells will grow back, or does it mean that that portion of the prostate is now dead?
Yeah, no, great question. I think that space gets filled with other fluids, but I think the important point to note is we are retaining the normal tissue, and which is why the functional outcomes, because when you think about cancer treatment, right, like, so you want the cancer to be under control, but then you have other functional outcomes like urinary continence and other sexual function. If you take the entire prostate out with prostatectomy, you're losing those functional outcomes, right? So with our system, since you preserve the normal tissue, you can retain those functional outcomes, which is huge for the patients. So we're only treating as needed and very targeted, but we can also treat the entire gland, or even do a hemiablation, which is half of the gland.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. So now, switching subjects, your background is in AI and machine learning and health tech applications. And we talked previously about using AI and machine learning and being able to apply that to other radiology imagery, but it's not available yet to ultrasound imagery. Do you want to elaborate on why you think this is?
Yeah, no, sure. I took this as an opportunity when we discussed the last time to do a little bit of research because
Yeah.
I was also curious of how many FDA algorithms have been cleared. So I mean, I found like some really good data. So I found a study, and they highlighted that there are more than 1,000 AI ML enabled devices that the FDA has approved, and over 80% of them are imaging based.
Oh, wow.
And you can imagine that all of that imaging is like radiology read.
Yeah.
So there is a majority that is very diagnostic focused, very radiology focused, and then there is a small portion which is, I think, considered like kind of interventional, like think maybe like continuous glucose monitoring. So there are a few applications on that side. Now, when you think about the imaging side, primarily like CT and MRI are the modalities that has been extensively used,
Right.
and in radiology. So you can see most of those FDA algorithms are focused on CT and MRI. And I
Oh,
found out that less than probably 5% actually involve ultrasound.
oh,
So just from what's out there, it's ultrasound is definitely not explored and fully leveraged at this point, and I think we have a huge opportunity. Now there are multiple reasons like about why. First, I think the easiest is CT and MRI were easily available, so I
right.
think the progression of automating it and leveraging AI was very natural. And ultrasound has been a challenge, right? Like, so if you remember seeing any of those fetal images,
Yeah.
it's hard to see. You need somebody to interpret that
Yeah.
because it's very noisy. But I think it's changing, right? Like that's the landscape that's changing with better computation, and now with AI that can handle more complexity. We ultrasound is definitely poised to catch up, and honestly, I think it's ready to be fully leveraged as a very powerful imaging modality.
Yeah, that's great. So, what's the biggest benefit of using AI and machine learning to detect anomalies during an ultrasound scan?
So when we think about maybe this is because of my background. So I did work with NIST, National Institute of Standards, for a short time, and part of the research that we did there was a large multi-institutional study looking at scanner variability. And I'm giving you this background because that shows why ultrasound makes sense. So if you think about that effort, it was a large study, US, and I think we had international centers. What we were trying to do was standardize protocol for CT imaging.
Okay.
Because if you look at the big five CT manufacturers, there wasn't a consistency in terms of the protocols that they used for, and we were specifically looking at lung nodule detection. Now, the thing with CT is, ironically, it increases the risk of cancer. So, and
Okay.
if you think about it, that's a big problem, right? Like, so you have these
Yeah.
cancer patients that are getting repeat scans to monitor
Yeah.
the disease progression. And then if that is contributing to accelerating that cancer, it's just ironic, right? Like, and that's where
Right.
the whole field of research about radiation-induced cancer. But I think we'll have to save that for another
Yeah.
episode. Um, Now, ultrasound on the other side is non-ionizing. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is it's very safe, which is why we use it during pregnancy, right? Like
Right.
because it doesn't cause any harm to tissue. There is no radiation, there is no long-term risk to tissue. And as we move into the future with AI, we are getting smarter algorithms, we're getting faster computation, and I mean, ultrasound is going to be very powerful and more accessible. So yeah, so that's to highlight to me, like it's a huge benefit.
Very good. So, what's the biggest hurdle that you need to get over when you're using AI and machine learning to analyze ultrasound scans?
Man, okay, so for this one, I'm going to sound very boring, but this is what everybody is talking about. It's data. And like
Yeah.
we're coming down to a point where we just need access to good quality data so that we
Yeah.
can train our models. It's again, everybody talks about it, but it's truly that is the only limitation, right? Like if we get access to good data, we can build really good models, and
Yeah.
there's no end to it, right? Like so, it's a
Yeah.
very short answer. It's data.
It's always data, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, very good. So where do you see the future of ultrasound as it relates to either as a treatment or for better disease detection in the future?
Okay. Yeah. Um, so, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, at Focal One, we have integrated ultrasound in two ways, just to reiterate. So, we use it for imaging and we also use it for therapy delivery, and it's all in one probe.
Right.
And we have combined this with robotics. So, if you think about the technology and where we are headed, it's all I want to say is we're literally just scratching the surface of what's
Yeah.
possible. And when you think about, like, point of care ultrasound, there's a lot that it's increasingly becoming common, where you can literally have an ultrasound machine plug into your phone, and there's a lot of point of care ultrasound space that's exploding. So I'm just excited to be a part of this journey where we're getting to treat, like I said, prostate cancer with sound waves.
Thank you so much for your time today, Ganesh. I really enjoyed our discussion on the use of ultrasound for better outcomes as a replacement for surgery and the future use of AI to detect disease.
Wendy, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I mean, I always love to talk about ultrasound, so really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing if we can disrupt this space. And we really have a great opportunity here at Focal One.
Very good. So for more information about either Disrupt Health Tech or Focal One, please see the links below. Thank you so much for attending today and see you next episode.